Good afternoon. This is Critical Talk with Professor Amina Al-Din, and I am honored and pleased to have one of the founders of Zakat Foundation with me this afternoon. We hope to give you a little bit of a multimedia display because Zakat Foundation is so important not only to those in the Muslim community, but to everybody everywhere across not only America, but across various countries in Africa. So I'm hoping that although Mrs. Donna Neal Demir, who's an RN, but she's one of the founders, guys, and this is important, calls herself the health advisor, but she's a do everything advisor. And she's worked greatly with, well, not greatly, but she's been in the trenches with Zakat Foundation since it was founded 20 years ago. But she's also worked in several of our hospitals around the city. And some of you may know her from there. Some of you may know her from a lot of different places. I have tried to put together for us this evening a little bit of a collage of all of the things that Zakat Foundation does. But before we go there, let us ask the question, when and why was Zakat Foundation founded?
Well, um, that's an excellent question, and it's always been very interesting to us in the fact that Zakat Foundation was founded just before September 11th. And anybody who knows anything about the Chicagoland area and our mosques here can easily tell you that that was a really difficult time in Chicago. So to start a nonprofit, an NGO, just a month or so before September 11th was just extremely unbelievable.
Well, that was
Um, I'm
that
sorry.
was really special.
Yeah. The community that we're actually, the area that we're located in is Bridgeview, Illinois.
Hmm.
And Bridgeview, Illinois is the largest concentration of Palestinian Muslims, I believe, outside of Michigan. So there was a lot going on, an awful lot going on with scrutiny and FBI and a lot of very, very scary things going on. So by the grace of Allah, we had kind of jumped in and we stood our ground and we survived. So that's when we were founded. Now, one of the reasons the foundation came into existence is because our executive director, uh, who is from Turkey, by the way, actually moved to the US and he saw a niche. He saw the fact that we have so many blessings and opportunities here living in the US as Muslims. And he saw that there was just everything was just up in the air when it came to what to do with zakat.
Yeah.
What did people do with their zakat? People didn't know what to
Well,
do with it.
our audience is Muslim and non, so you're going to have to
Oh,
explain
thank you.
any Islamic terminology.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Well, zakat, known in English and Christian terms, is defined as tithes. Okay, so for us as Muslims, and I'm gonna please have Dr. Aldine jump in anytime she feels like it, because she is
Tithing
the expert.
is a kind of Christian thing that is not what zakat is. Zakat is a
Okay,
purification of wealth that
true,
God
true.
has blessed you to earn during the year, and you're
Yes,
supposed to give a portion back. But I
a
can
portion.
understand how people would understand it as
Yeah,
either alms or, but tithing happens very regularly. So maybe alms for a Christian audience.
thank you for that, and that's why I always want her to jump in because it is different in the sense that it's mandatory for us because it is one of our five pillars of Islam, which means that you have to do it. It's not like an option, like maybe I'll do it this week, maybe I'll do it no later, later.
On
It is
those
it
who
is
can afford it.
on those who can afford it.
Right.
So our executive director came to the US and he saw people that were trying to fulfill their religious obligation and didn't know what to do with their money. They were trying to send it back home. They were trying to do this, they were trying to do that. And so through his brainstorming, he says, we need to find a way to utilize this properly, because what we're going to do is to revive the culture of zakat with the Muslims, but also to help create more of an atmosphere of giving and generosity.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole concept of zakat, just as Dr. Aldine said, really is very different than, let's just say, tithes or alms or something like that. It is very specific. The rules and the regulations of it is very specific. Who can receive it? Who should not receive it? It's very, very, very specific. But what we do know is that it actually changes society as a whole.
So
Uh,
could we say that the mission of uh, Zakat Foundation of America is to introduce in a large way, because I'm going to show in a minute how many programs you have, um, to introduce how one goes about social change from an Islamic
yes,
perspective.
yes, 100%. And let me just say this, because I'm sure I'm going to say it again. Our concept at the foundation is we utilize the zakat in the way that it properly should be used. We go above and beyond race. We go above and beyond religion for people that are in need, people that are needy. That's how zakat is best utilized, without going into a lot of more detail. But yes, the goal was to help the underserved and the underprivileged. We never wanted at Zakat Foundation to play a kind of game where we want to ask you what you believe first before we give you what you need, because we've seen a lot of that
Well, a
in,
lot
in,
of
in
people
this
come
world.
to have benefited from Zakat who are not
Yes,
even Muslim. And it's
that's my
also
point. Hmm.
teaching Muslims who are relatively new to this country that one gives to the needy. They don't ask for a passport or litmus
Hmm.
test of
Hmm.
faith first. It's if you need, you get.
Yes,
Um, so, how many offices does Zakat Foundation have in the United States?
we currently have 7 offices.
And how
Uh,
many do you have worldwide?
when we talk about worldwide, we're all over Africa. We're in Pakistan. We're in South America. Uh, I want to say, and this is so crazy, I never sit down and do the numbers. I can name the countries if somebody wants to count on a finger for me. But we are internationally. We're in Turkey. We're in Mali. We're in Kenya, Ghana. We are in Argentina. We are in Pakistan. Those are the standing offices. Now, programs that we have running is something that's a little bit different. Also, Lebanon. It just really depends upon which direction, which side of the world you're talking about. But we're kind of pretty much all over. We're a very well kept secret of our
Not
humanitarian work.
anymore, because I'm in the business of making sure that you're not well kept. I'm going to ask my producer to cue the program page for Zakat Foundation. If you look with me, my goodness, concerns about water, education, food security, emergency relief, orphan care, health and well being, refugee empowerment, livelihood, which is a big category, and seasonal Islamic giving. If one wanted to know how one begins the process of thinking about how one begins to make social change, one has to begin to think about these areas which Zakat Foundation has narrowed with such precision. So I'm going to ask for us to just look, and I'm going to show the video, and then I'm going to ask Mrs. Demir to comment later. Can we just take a peek at video number one? sound. That's okay. The fact that this young man can even say what happened means that it is etched in his memory. Those four kids, amongst many, many other families of children, have been left without the uncles, the aunts, the mom, the dad, all of the grown ups who could care for them. And one of the issues is that in, and I want to say, one Islamic stance, because it's not all Muslim stances, is that Muslims can't adopt kids. But and one of the reasons behind that, of course, is because the notion of adoption in the West changes your surname, cuts you off from any inheritances or anything else you had for your original
Mhm.
parents. Tell us a little bit about how you at Zakat Foundation of America understand the need for us to step in and help these orphans.
Well, let me add this to your comments. A little bit off track, but not really. Uh, we do have a social justice wing, which we
Hmm.
can go into later. But under that umbrella, we've recognized very early on at Zakat Foundation that the concept of adoption or orphan sponsorship is a right of every child, and that does fall under social justice. They deserve
Absolutely.
they deserve to have someone to guide them, someone to care for them. And yes, as you said, Dr. Aldine, these children deserve to know their lineage, their heritage. They need to
Sure.
maintain their names. They deserve to receive their inheritance. They deserve to know the truth. Now, we know that from how many times have we seen closed adoptions here in the US and
Yeah.
in the West in general. It creates so much emotional trauma for everybody all the way around. So for us as a Cut Foundation, the care of the orphan, okay, is of utmost importance. I always like to say, we those of us that study our religion, we know how important it is.
Yeah.
But even if you look at it on a level of humanity, okay, I always say, anyone who knows me knows I'm a huge animal lover, and for
Hmm.
goodness sake, I'll take in a puppy and a kitten in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So these are
Why not a
children.
kid?
Why not a kid? And it's we've been so fortunate and blessed in this country, all of us, that we do have some extra dollars. We really do, to help these children have a better life.
Well, I
So
think it's
yes,
important that Zakat is taking it on because
yes,
many
yes.
times, many Christian missionary organizations have gone full speed ahead. And not only are these children's names changed, their religious positionality is changed as they're grown up in families far from Islam. Now, I would not decry the charitableness of those Christian families, but why aren't we taking in our own?
Well, we have a lot to learn. And as long as you live, you have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So as you said earlier, we want more people to understand, more human beings to understand that maintaining each other's dignity is an obligation. Okay, and the term for it in Arabic is amana, and I'll let Dr. Aldin can define that, but it is an obligation. Amana is much larger than an obligation when you translate the word from English.
Right.
So I'll just say obligation. It's an extreme obligation to take
There
care
you
of the needy. It's an extreme obligation to take care of the unfortunate, the underprivileged.
go.
Okay. I have never read anything that says that I am only supposed to take care of someone who's African American like me, or someone who's Muslim like me, or,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Uh-huh.
anyone who's hungry,
Right.
hungry is hungry.
Right.
And I should not have to, uh, I should not it's not my responsibility that you become Muslim before I give you a piece of bread. It's,
Exactly.
I mean, that's very simple. And I think as we start to peel away layers, we start to see that we're really all human beings, and we all want the same things.
Yeah.
We want attention, we want to be loved. And when I think of orphans, I'll share a very a quote that's very dear to my heart that came from the great Toni Morrison, who said, and I want you guys to hold on to this because it's so true. Our beloved Toni Morrison said, every child needs to have one person whose face lights up when they walk in the room.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I'm gonna translate that over to even just being an adult. How good do you feel when you walk in a room and you see someone who looks right at you, just at you,
And the face lights up.
and the face lights up and you
Exactly.
smile? Because
Exactly.
we all want to feel special.
Yeah.
We want to feel like we matter to someone, like someone heard us. Did you hear me?
Right.
Are you listening? So
Yeah.
when we talk about orphans, make no, there's no doubt about it. Make no mistake. To Zakat Foundation, orphans are very important, and we hope in the near future to actually uh, be part of the policy change and implementing the need for orphan sponsorship. We're talking about orphans here in the US as well,
Right.
because we've done a lot of work. If you go to our website, it's
Mm.
www.zakat.org. You can get you can get photos and you can see some of the orphans that we sponsor overseas. Now, without going on a tangent, uh, sponsoring an orphan, the conditions are different in every country. Okay, an orphan is defined as a child who is missing one or both parents.
Hmm.
Okay, quite different than what we would call an orphan here in America. But regardless, these children still have rights. They still need to be nurtured. They still need to be taken care of. They need to be fed. They need to be clothed. They need to be educated. They need to be cared for.
No, that's
And
very
that is
true. One of the advantages we have when we're talking about children here is a foster care system. And one Muslim in our community, Cheryl Bilal, who was a social worker, now retired, worked tirelessly to get Muslim families to understand the concept. Most of the African Americans understood it, but to get immigrant families to understand foster care, because here is not adoption, right? But you're giving a child faces that light up when they come home, food, their clothes. They're going to go to school and not living on the streets, which is one of the things that happens around the world. Nobody cares for you, then you become a ward of the streets.
yeah.
I'm going to, if you'll bear with me, go to another part. I am so fascinated by the programs that Zakat Foundation of America, and I want all of you listening to get on that website, um, is sponsoring, that all of us can partake in, however it is we can partake in, be it with our bodies or our dollars. Well, since we're still sheltering, it might be with our dollars as opposed to our bodies. But to know it is extremely important. And then once again, when we're not sheltering, it can potentially become, a place for us to gather. But I want to talk about gathering at Scott Foundation a little bit later.
Yes. And let me just add this quickly also. For those of you lovely viewers that are not of the Islamic persuasion, we have a large amount of donors who are also not Muslim.
Yeah,
Not to mention employees. We've pushed really hard to be as global and as human as we can possibly be, in the
gender
sense
diverse, race and
gender diverse.
ethnicity diverse,
Yes,
language diverse.
Yes,
Yeah.
and at the same time, because of the fundamental principles on which Zakat Foundation was established, we have become the leading expert on the concept, the pillar of Zakat itself, because we have had so many people from very old Muslim countries just try to wrap their head around how we've taken Zakat and we have actually changed the face of what it means to be an American Muslim. We've empowered a lot of communities. We also provide necessary information, for example, of how much someone owes for Zakat, how you
Right.
pay your Zakat, what it's for, because what you guys don't know, Dr. Aldine alluded to this a little bit, that the amount of zakat that you pay is based on your income. It's 2.5% of whatever you make.
Mhm.
Okay, but there is a point where you have to have so much money
In
before
order
you
to
have
have
to
it.
pay
Hmm.
it. Before you pay it, and certain things, conditions have to be before you can receive it. So it's not like a willy-nilly thing where everybody just pays like $100 or $1,000 and you're just done. It's a science within itself. And
Yeah.
we have become one of the leading experts on that science and how it functions outside of a Muslim environment. And our executive director has actually written a book on zakat uh, that was reviewed by a couple of different governments, Muslim countries, well-established Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia being one. I was
Well,
very
since
fascinated
we're
with how
talking
we did
about
it.
international work, if my producer would please cue my my number three in my little list here. Let's go. While we're waiting, I think it is just, we hear a lot about various aid organizations with a little bit of a different twist. But watch this. This is the Zakat Foundation in Kenya. Very recently, they have landed. They had to walk across this very long bridge. Uh, People are cheering them on. This is wonderful. Happy to see you. We know what you bring. Uh, and clearly, it's the smiles and the welcomingness of the people, which is what Zakat gets back.
Yes. Now that the gentleman that had the blue vest,
Yeah.
that is our director in
Hmm.
Kenya. He is a medical doctor himself, implements a lot of programs. Our Dr. Wangusi.
Okay.
And then you look through. We actually walked through the city of Bungoma.
Uh
It had
huh.
been 10 years since the COT Foundation has been in Kenya. So
Wonderful.
we were joined by everyone, and there's our Fatima Ali you just saw there. We took 15 of our donors, Chicago donors. It was a very fascinating trip to Kenya. So as an assessment project, so they got to see the sites and they got to see where their dollars went. They got to see the
Exactly.
recipients
Yeah.
of their generous gifts. And not only that, I want you guys to consider how amazing, just hold it in your brain for a second. We took 15 Palestinians
Uh
to
huh.
Kenya, to
Right.
Kenya.
Yeah.
Such a cultural exchange. Uh, it was just, it was like nothing you would
Well,
ever
the
experience.
Kenyans will never forget it, and neither will the Palestinians who went.
Right.
Um, and I think that those cultural exchanges you cannot buy. They have to be lived. And alhamdulillah, meaning all praises to God, this happened before we got shut down.
Yeah.
So, folks, I mean, they had something to take as they closed their doors and their shutters and screens of some wonderful memory and pictures. And if I'm not mistaken, this trip and more video of it is on a YouTube,
Yes.
something on your website. So I would encourage everybody um, to look. As we looked in the beginning,
And let me just add again, um, that recipients, people that were participating in the video when we're walking through the village, uh, Kenya is a very different setup. So don't assume when you see these videos, every place we go, everybody is Muslim. It's
Right,
it's
right,
it's
right, right,
the setup is so different than here. People, tribes live together of different religions,
right.
neighbors. They plant their crops together. It's not the way we live here in America, where Muslims live on one side of town, or blacks live on one side of town, or whites live on. Yeah, I mean, it's so different. It's just so different when you go a place like that and you see people from different tribes but different religions, and they're sitting and they're eating together, or they're coming to meet you and they're welcoming you with food. I think I got a live chicken, which was kind of scary.
And that was great.
It's yeah, but
Should have named
it's really it's
it.
it's very different. It's very rewarding to meet people on the level of being humanity, being part of humanity and being humane. It's very different than what we
Yes,
see
it
here.
is. And it puts, the United States has had a serious problem with many of the Christian charities. And one of those has been nobody knows where the money goes. And in the instances in which they did do investigative reporting,
Mm.
they found all kinds of not so nice things. I think Zakat is setting a model for those who are nation charities just beginning to to do some of that work, but also for Muslim communities across the country who want
We,
to
we, you know, we
pretend, and people are watching us in Canada, so I'm hoping that some of them see ways to pitch in.
we sincerely hope so, uh, because it's very important. It's very important that we all, and I'm going to emphasize again, all, we all put our best foot forward to do the best that we should do and the best
Yeah,
that we absolutely can do. And when someone is hungry, they're hungry.
yeah.
When someone is homeless, they're homeless.
Well, I think one of the things that happens for all of us, Muslim and not, is that once you get food, you forget about those who don't have any.
Mm,
You begin to, if you give $1 to a beggar on the street, you want to follow the dollar. Like, what is he going to do with it? That's not your job.
yeah.
Your job was, are you going to give it or not? Are you giving it because you think God is going to bless you? I mean, what are your intentions behind the giving? So, but we forget about them once we're safe and secure. The heat works, the air conditioning works, we have food enough to put in trash cans. So we know that we're living beyond what we need and totally forget about those who have nothing. One of the things, many of the restaurants here in Chicago, and I'm sure in other cities, did not destroy their food at the end of the serving hour, but saved it to give to many charities who are feeding the homeless daily, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so when COVID hit, we were done. You know, the homeless now and all of those shelters were beginning to close. Some of them tried to stay open, but they were used to receiving the food from the restaurants, delicious meals. Can I ask? I want to move to Zakat's domestic efforts before I move to the future. So, can I ask the producer to cue up number 4? We were hit while he's doing that. I don't think, pandemic. Hold on for a second. Pandemic never, pause that. Pandemic never enters anybody's mind. You know what I mean? I mean, pandemic, really? Flu season, yeah. Allergy season, yes. Uh, Pandemic, people heard pandemic and figured China's so far away from us that, so what? They died. We'll just keep on doing whatever it is we're doing, not realizing the sheer number of flights between the United States and China every year, the number of flights between China and New York. You know, the global travel has become a vector for global disease. So people didn't pay any attention, but Zakat did. Can I go back to my video now? Zakat Foundation was one of the premier deliverers of food, masks, gloves, and then food again, and then gloves, and then masks, and then food again, and then gloves, and then masks, and then sanitizers. And it was just an awesome turning of what people usually think of as relief in other countries to relief here in the United States. I mean, of course, uh, was just odd. But you want to tell us how you all set up with this COVID relief response?
Yes. Well, let me say this. Because disaster is what we do and what we do best, we already had 20 years under our belt. Okay, so
It didn't
it,
mean
it
anything. People had 20 years under them. They had 30 years under their belt.
really,
Pandemic hit and they got paralyzed.
uh, not us.
Yes, and it did.
Um, so initially, when it started, um, I personally delivered hundreds of thousands of PPE equipment all across the city myself. And again, like you just showed, you can go to our website. You can see how that started, how things fell into being. I literally sat down, and that's where my healthcare background. It was such a blessing to know some of the things that I
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Uh, I know where the smaller impoverished hospitals are. I know which hospitals were going to get neglected because they're already neglected. So I
right,
know they were going to be overlooked. I know where the population is very concentrated. We already predicted where it was going to spread, where people are more tightly, their living quarters are
right,
tighter. They don't
hmm,
have cars. They're on public transportation.
right,
So again, you can go to the website and look for that. But that was the first thing that we did because gloves and masks.
right.
And this was actually in March. This was in
Yeah,
early
yeah,
March,
yeah.
before it got really really bad, where we were totally out of stuff. We were just about totally out of stuff. You know what I was doing simultaneously, which you probably don't know, Dr. Aldine, is I was, as the health advisor, I was consistently communicating with the countries where we have offices. I put in
I
effort,
did
not
know.
just myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just myself. I don't want to
Mhm,
take credit for all of this. Not just myself, others as well. We were steps ahead from COVID reaching Africa, reaching Pakistan, reaching
right,
South America. We were steps ahead. We were uh, advising, suggesting to
right.
Turkey, to Argentina, um, to Colombia, as the Venezuelans were crossing the border trying to get some relief into Colombia. We're all over the place. And I'll add again, those are not Muslim countries. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's
But
it's
you know,
it's, it's good.
these efforts that this little, that not little, but that Zakat Foundation sits here in Chicago. I will try my best to make sure it's not a best kept secret, as you can tell. Um,
Thank
and
you.
it's doing all these things changes the narrative. in many, many ways about what Muslims do in this country.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
but it also came to rival what much older, more staid organizations who had to get out of shock first did, who do disaster relief sometimes, but 5 days in advance that the hurricane is coming or that the what is it, a tsunami is coming, and
Yes.
so you have stations in places. But for a pandemic, we were here. Where? And Zakat Foundation could map out places because it does disaster relief, but also because it has some people who can think. When you have a novel occurrence happening, and it was truly novel, but it wasn't only hmm, gloves and masks, but it was gloves and masks. But then, we were in a pandemic complaining. I wasn't complaining because I was watching Netflix. But in a pandemic, complaining, many people began to break down mentally. Uh, People who would never have considered themselves as having mental illness began to break down. Uh, People who had mental illness got worse. Beds were commandeered in hospitals away from psych wards and every other ward to go for COVID patients because there were so many patients. And traditionally, ICU units, even in the largest hospitals, are the smallest units.
Yes.
Okay?
I mean, it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And what I would add to that currently or concurrently, we have 10 COVID programs outside of the US going on right now, right now as we speak.
Say more.
Um, yeah, uh, because as I said, we stayed steps ahead from COVID before it got to those countries. I was consistently sending out information of social distancing, certain things that needed to be done. Consider hand sanitizer, but consider this as well. We're talking about countries where people don't have running water. If
Right.
they do have, and we're talking about people that are in a lot of countries where even if they have water, it's not drinkable.
Mm-hmm.
We've always done work when we talk about domestic work. We've always done work with the Native Americans here. They don't have running water.
Nope.
And it's so much that needs to be done. And we always say if everyone does a little, that'll be less for one person to do if everyone kind of does a little. But even now, when we talk about COVID, we've we've proven ourselves to just be unrelentless in dealing with this pandemic. We were the first to send trucks to Minneapolis.
Hold it.
We've
Hold
already.
that point. I haven't gotten there yet. Queue up Minneapolis. I got something for everything. I'm telling you, I am so on this.
I think you are.
I am. I am. Can you talk us through this?
There's our executive director here, and he is the just the such a visionary. I mean, thank God we have him, such a visionary. I believe, is that Ilhan Omar there?
It
I think it
is.
is.
It's
It
the
looks like it. Yeah,
congresswoman.
she was there to receive our second truck. Each truck that we send feeds up to 5,000 people. So we've already sent 4 trucks just to Minneapolis alone. What's in those trucks is we've got some serious food. We've got milk, gallons of fresh milk, potatoes, 25-pound boxes of produce. We've got meat. And just for you guys who aren't Muslim, let me tell you something. This is really good meat. If you're familiar with kosher meat, okay, this is what we call zabiha meat for Muslims, similar to kosher for Jews. Very high quality meat. Animals are slaughtered in a very clean and humane way, if I can say such a thing. Um, in other words, we're sending good meat. We're not sending pressed chicken. or pulled chicken from this part or that part. We're sending good stuff. If we don't eat it, we're not going to give it to you to eat. Okay.
Well, I think the
So
key was again uh, knowing what's going on. People saw the almost instantaneous protest in Minneapolis. They even saw the looters, who I really don't believe were part of the protest. But what they didn't think about was, oh, grocery stores are being burned. You know, uh, people are
I'm
throwing
sorry. I'm sorry. Where there were grocery stores,
where there were,
remember
because that's a
the
food
food
desert,
desert. That's
right?
another issue
I
that we
saw,
deal with every single day.
right. Zakat Foundation sent 13 tons of food up there, for which the congresswoman says, whoa, 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 who is this? You know, so now we have, it's not always about publicity, but it is good for people to see us acting decisively and acting quickly to serve their needs when they're in dire straits. I am not finished yet. And I want to go to uh, the clip on the Khalil Center on our health. It was clip number 2.
Would you like
And
to have some numbers?
to what?
Uh, 1 million pounds of food, 8,000 gallons of milk, several tons of potatoes. I mean, we're talking large. We're talking about food going every single place where we have an office. Northern California, Southern California, St. Louis, some places where we don't have an office, Michigan. We were involved in Flint, Michigan years ago. But Michigan, Minneapolis, North Carolina, South Carolina, uh, uh, outskirts of Virginia, we have sent food to these places. And this is part of the COVID response, not to mention the fact that we've offered financial assistance to those who have lost their jobs. There's a lot of people out there, guys, whose husband and wife both are teachers. You
Yeah.
know, that's a big issue. Now they don't have money and they're hungry and they have kids. So
Yeah, but
you
the
know,
other thing about it is when we get, and I'm going to move along here, but when we get to the future, schools downsize. Many businesses, which is
yeah,
including a school, took this at COVID as an opportunity to downsize. Can you cue up number 2 for me, please? Because along with feeding people, which is a kind of basic necessity, and by the way, in Chicago, there are 13,000 people who don't have water.
yeah. See, that's another, and that's a very important point.
Go to
That
Columbus Center. Talk us
that's
through.
and let's also add in the fact of housing. There are a lot of people that are being thrown out of their houses right now.
Khalil Center, which the Cot Foundation sponsors, is the largest provider of Muslim mental health care, which is, I mean, a godsend to any community. But it also, and I don't know if we had time to show, it's integrated psychotherapy and healthcare, but it has a religious uh, portion to it that is very important. I would encourage, I'm going to ask Mrs. Demir to speak a little bit about it, but I would encourage everybody again, go to this website. You will learn stuff you're saying, oh my goodness, I didn't know this was there. You want to talk about Khalil Center?
Yes, Khalil Center. That's the executive director, Human, and I always say his name wrong. Korshkazbasi, I think it is.
Mm.
Um, wonderful professional, um, that he is. Um, Came to us, was actually sent to us, and Halil Center, no relation, no connection with our executive director, whose name is Halil also. Halil Center came to us and has become a Zakat Foundation project, which
Mhm.
means that we support them, we sponsor them, we support what they do in any way and every way that we can. The same way that we sponsor the Rohingya Cultural Center, which is on the north side of Chicago, on Devon. Those of you that are from here,
Mhm.
it's the only cultural center that the Rohingyans have in the world. Okay, that is also a Zakat Foundation project. Okay, uh, Halil Center came to us and came into being when we recognized that due to all of the stress of living as a Muslim in America, also coming with all the issues that you have being a refugee, coming from war torn countries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, mental health is something that all of us need. Even those of us that are living here and we have big fine houses and we have jobs and we have issues. So of course refugees are going to have issues, immigrants are going to have issues. So the need was recognized very early, and we decided that this was something that was absolutely necessary. That Khalil Center needed support, and that it just had to be, And they consequently have also opened up a medical clinic. They do excellent work. They're also in a couple of other locations. So yeah, mental health is very important because when you use a holistic model, and now I'm going to speak as a nurse, but when you use a holistic model and you look at a human being completely, totally whole from top to bottom,
Mm.
that's looking at someone holistically. You can't just put someone in a house, give them some food, and they're going to be fine. Life has
Well,
stressors,
there you go. Well,
you know.
I'm at the almost at the end of my time, and I wanted to reserve a minute or two to talk about the future. I got a call shortly before we came on to do the show where there was a great deal of concern about the future. People, I was being told that loads of people have stepped in on the south and west sides of Chicago with food. And it was after it was in the paper and on the news and lots of things.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the winter? If there is a second wave of COVID, but even if there isn't, there's still food deserts. Chicago currently has 13,000 residential units which do not have water. And we don't live in Kenya.
Yeah, and that's a very good point that you bring up. I would love for the listeners, the viewers to understand that we do have parts of Chicago. I'm from here, so I'm more familiar with Chicago, but I'm sure it's going on in other cities.
Right,
We
right.
have we have parts of the US that is no different than if you're standing on a corner in Ghana. And
Exactly.
and and especially again we cannot leave out the Native Americans.
Right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
they live. It's just wretched the way people actually live. Um, our plan at Cat Foundation is we will do whatever we have to do. We will continue with the work that we've done, God willing, as best we can and as much as we can. And I think it's important to make a note that this Friday we're going to be doing a food distribution at DuSable Museum. Okay,
Okay. The
we're
premier African American museum in Chicago.
Yes, yes, and we have a lot of things. Thank God our executive director he's a very innovative person by nature, which is a gift. Okay, he's always one step ahead because he just has the great blessing and ability to think outside of the box, which is how the Cat Foundation was even formed. Okay,
Okay.
um, to
But
to
this
get
is
more food out there.
But this is good news. I am so sorry that we have to end here. I might take it upon myself to delve into another one of Zakat's programs more fully because I love digging on Critical Talk. And I want to thank Mrs. Demir for hanging out with us this evening
Thank
and
you.
bringing us all this good insight into Zakat Foundation of America.
Please
Thank
go
you.
to the website. Thank you.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Wassalam.
Stay.